Good afternoon, everyone. 400 years, housing prices. Amsterdam, see anything unusual? Construction openings off a cliff. This is where they're moving people into. They're redundant. Well, maybe we could move into a pyramid. Sudan has more than anywhere on the planet. Warren Buffett surging cash. What is he telling us? Norway's economy grinding to a halt. It's time for a facelift. History repeats in cycles. And since we're talking about housing and historical cycles, food production and the reset, 1898 is what our cities used to look like. Public transportation for all. So you have to ask yourself through history how much has been removed from the public good to create scarcity, to put everybody on a metered system, a metered life. Nowhere to escape from. They talked us out of victory gardens after World War II when we were 40% self-sufficient for food growing in America, every family. But nope, back on the system into the supermarket. So talking about historical cycles, grand solar minimum cycles, this is actually where the grand solar minimum begins, somewhere right around 1640. So it's quite interesting that we are back into... So what caused the drop-off there around, say, 1650, 1670? Well, people moved. And we see a drop-off. And then people returned at around 1700 when everything stabilized. Food production became much more readily forecastable. And then where do we sit today? Looking over the historical averages, something has definitely broken. You have 300 years of between doubling prices, and then suddenly we skyrocket out of that into a 4x, 5x increase. Something's definitely not right on that. I mean, you just let the chart walk your eyes through that, collapses, wars, etc. during the centuries. Canada housing supply deficit hits new record in Q1 of 2024. People per housing unit started. Great financial crisis is right around 2009 and 10. That vertical dropped down back up. This thing is off the chart. Literally, there's nothing else that even compares to it. So it shows you twice in two charts that we are in uncharted territory. And then if we look at the job construction openings, we're going to take you to the far right. 1 month change, biggest drop on record going back. It's only to the year 2000, but that vertical drop right there is significant. Now, we saw the same thing during the pandemic, but this one outstrips that. So here we go. Third chart, something very out of the ordinary, shall we say. And then I pulled this off Market News Feed. It's all about housing. Now, this is the thing that's going to drive everybody's expenses. So I'll come into my point in a second here. 5-year ahead expected home prices, 2.7 versus 2023 2.8. Okay, so the home price seems like it's going to be stabilizing. Rent prices are going to be clipping up. Originally last year was 8.2%. This year it'll be 9.7%. Year ahead rent rises to the second highest in the survey's history. Again, going back to 1999. Renters' expectation of achieving home ownership record low since 1999. So we've been through two boom and bust cycles since that point. You know, the dot-com crash at the end, 97, brings us into that era, and then we had the great financial crisis, 2008 and 9, and then today. So those previous two cycles didn't affect the psychology as much as it is now. While the Fed's most trusted recession indicator is flashing code red, every recession since 1945 has been preceded by a yield curve inversion. Meanwhile, the M2 money supply is meaningfully contracting for only the 5th time since 1870. All signs appear to point to a sizable downturn for the Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ. Gold prices have been hitting all-time highs, and the rally is far from over. Call the Proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. And remember, mention the ADAPT 2030 channel.
Hey, and Patriot Gold Group has a no-fee-for-life IRA where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. And the no-fee-for-life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Reach out to Patriot Gold Group, 888-546-7020 for your free investor guide today. And now on with the video.
So consumers expected higher mortgage rates. Yep, higher. So they're expecting higher rates on that. And housing as an investment remained positive because everybody sees it's going to run. They expected mortgage levels, record levels for the survey. So what does this mean for us then? See, most people that own a home, you're going to have insurance on that home. And the higher the rates go on insurance are reflected by the value of your home. Now, I got off with my insurance agent, 30% rise for this year because materials are becoming more expensive. Everything's becoming more expensive. I've never claimed. But since things are going to be more expensive, if I do claim, then they're predicting 30% price rise this year alone in my insurance rates. Now, motor as well, going to be the exact same thing. Car insurance is going up. Homeowners insurance is going up. If you don't have the homeowner's insurance, you are going to forfeit your mortgage and the bank will repossess your home. If it becomes that expensive where you cannot afford your insurance based on the rise of the cost of your home, they're going to pull your home. Secondly, or thirdly, I guess, the taxes that you're going to pay for your yearly, I own my home outright, but I still need to pay property tax is based on the value of your home. And if everybody's values of homes continue to rise, then your property taxes will reflect that. So now you're going to get hit with increased insurance premiums on your auto coverage, increased insurance premiums on your homeowner's coverage, increased taxes across the board for your property tax. So how much extra money is laying around for that kind of a hit across the entire population of 3 different taxes rising in unison? And that's the whole thing that this is showing. So the next thing you would need to look at is jobs, like how many jobs are out here, because that is all going to reflect finally on the food pricing. And that is the thing that collapses society. If your home becomes too expensive, your rent becomes too expensive, your automobile becomes too expensive, you can't even afford the basics, and then food prices double or triple, this is what has ripped societies apart time and time again in these cycles. So it's all related. So here we go. How about the jobs? U.S. job market cooling down, fewest gains in 6 months. Wages fell below 4% also. Unemployment rising according to the U.S. Labor Department, up 0.1%, but again, a lot of figures are manipulated and then revamped later. Figures which are always grossly under or over exaggerated. Hires versus quits here. Green line hires, quitting is the red. So during that pandemic time, we needed so many extra people to make sure you're wearing a mask at the door, etc. A lot of people quit and retired. You can see that inflection there. But here's something interesting. As we're cruising up the line, start way back in like 2012 on this chart on the left side, those two of hiring and quitting were pretty, evenly matched, for a better term. But after the pandemic, then what happens? It has split tremendously. See if you can find this same split recurring sometime in history in the past. And when it does, then forward after it splits like this, what happens to the economy or food prices or whatever price across the society where this same event occurred in the past? It'll give you a good predictive figure for the future. Not exact, but generally, the trend should be the same. But the trend that we see is they're trying to push everybody into these tiny homes. So this is the new neighborhood of the future. That's what I call a storage shed for my tools. That is not a home, nor should you even consider it a home. That's insulting. That should be on the land you own to grow your own food as your tool shed, nothing else. Well, maybe chicken coop, chicken roost. Not your main primary residence. Oh, it hurts my soul to even think about that. But maybe you want to move into a pyramid, because any type of home was up for grabs now. If you're going to move into a tiny home, why not expand your thought process and move into a pyramid? And Sudan has more pyramids than any country in the world, even more than Egypt. I didn't know. 200 pyramids there compared to 118 in Egypt. But as we look across the world, it's time for a facelift. It's time for us to take our world back. Now this is what comes from marble recreated into imagery, but it paints the same picture, no pun intended. We need a restructuring and a repainting of our world. These rulers need to be unveiled for what they are and we need to take our world back. Because if you think this painting reflects our world here of the falling off the cliff, we're dangerously close because everybody's so complacent. Because Norway economy is grinding to a halt. Now that was supposed to be the bellwether for all of the Scandinavian nations. When Norway ceases, so does every other Scandinavian nation. So you could probably replicate this across 6 or 7 other countries. And the same thing, going to the BRICS nations. So Europe's not invited to the BRICS aligned nations. So you can see where the economies are going with this. And the final piece of the puzzle here would be Berkshire Hathaway slashing Apple stake. Like they sold 13% of all their Apple holdings to get into cash. I'm thinking, all right, 189 billion in cash. What is he waiting for? And he knows obviously that the dollar's not going to crash in value that much until they get into something else. There's going to be this middle ground here for a second. So there's Warren Buffett's surging cash pile. So Q4 2023 is the most cash ever. Unbelievable. On record. Chart says it all here, but this guy is kind of a soothsayer in terms of markets. So 2 things are going on. You can see clearly. The prediction is as this crash occurs, dollar will hold its value through the initial part of the crash. And they're going to be stacked up in loot waiting to jump on those assets. Once they do, whatever it is, not sure, but as soon as they get into that next position, at that point they know the US dollar will crash. So it'll be something that will not be reflective of the dollar too much, but you can at least see there's a glimpse here in the future of not an immediate hyperinflative devaluing event of the US dollar, because they would not be holding cash if it were. They would be getting as something else, gold miners, silver miners, any kind of raw materials miners, ships, oil wells. They'd be into anything else of tangible value outside the U.S. if the U.S. dollar was going to implode that quickly. That's a reassuring sign for me that they're holding cash. So when the crash does come, a lot of people are saying definitely before the end of the year, we're going to see some massive 1929 event that'll roll through. I can imagine, follow him, whatever he does with the money after the crash occurs, that's going to be a protective stance, the defensive all the way, because at that point the dollar will start to devalue. But we're going to get those 2 levels, those 2 valleys up and down of crash, buy something, wait for the devaluation, protect yourself. Do what he does. Follow the big money, basically. So you're going to want to think about storable foods during this time. My Patriot Supply and Adapt 2030 3-month emergency food supply. That link's in the description box below, along with a couple links for tonight's stories and images. I wish you the best in 3, 2, 1. I wish you the best in your preparations. Bye for now.